Nurah Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nurah Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nurah Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me in this inaugural episode of the Nurah Speaks podcast. This is episode 1, and I'm so excited to be able to say that. This has been a long time coming, and I'm just grateful to those who have encouraged me and pushed me to get involved in this endeavor. Who is Nurah? So, who is it that you're listening to? So, I am a wife, I am a mother, and I am a community actionist. I am someone who is very solutions oriented. And so, as such, it is my goal to not only be someone who can identify problems, but also identify solutions and implement solutions and proven strategies. Because we, especially in the Black community, have a lot of catching up to do. We have a lot of areas of improvement. And this is something that we have to talk about. We cannot be ashamed of the problems that we have. We should only be ashamed of not coming together and being transparent and vulnerable when necessary to talk about what's happening. Wow, listen to that. That is from the very, very first episode of the Nurah Speaks podcast, which debuted December 11th, 2017. That seems like it was so long ago, but, time does go by pretty quickly. That was episode 1, and now here I am recording the 200th episode of the podcast, and it's been quite a journey. And so some may be very new to this podcast and saying, what do you mean this is the 200th episode? This is the very first one that I've been acquainted with. Some may be wondering where I've been for the last many, many months that the podcast has not released a new episode. And so I just want to take some time and explain why there had been such a extended hiatus for the podcast. First, I will say that this podcast is something that is very meaningful to me. It's a labor of love for sure. And it's something that I don't do for personal gain or it's not an ego-driven project. This is a podcast that is an extension of work that I do in my community, with my community and for my community to be an additional resource of information, perhaps an additional resource of inspiration. And this podcast has been very valuable to me. And I pray that those who are returning to the podcast, that this podcast has been valuable to you and that this podcast will continue to be valuable to you. In that introduction there, I believe I said that I'm a wife, a mother, a community actionist. And, my roles have grown so much since I began this podcast in 2017. I find myself more involved with more responsibilities and also the co-chair of the Democratic Committee where I live. And, there's just so many responsibilities that I have. And what I found is that the responsibility certainly did compete for my time, and I did not find a way to be effective at doing everything. And, those who know me, those who are close to me know that I do have a lot on my plate, but I did not want to stop the podcast. And I wanted to continue it so that, it could continue on as a resource, but I wanted to find a way to do it and still meet every other obligation. And you may say, well, the podcast doesn't, it's only 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's just a weekly show. However, there's so much that goes into the podcast beyond just pressing record and then publishing an episode. There's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes, and it's not that it's difficult. It's not that it's labor intensive. However, in combination with every other responsibility that I have, I just didn't understand how I could really make it work. And now I'm back. And you say, so have you figured it out? And I think I have. I think I have figured it out. Moving forward, unless I have a guest in an interview, each podcast moving forward will be about 15 minutes. And this gives me the opportunity to get in, deliver a message, and in a shorter period of time. And what this does, it gives me an opportunity to, one, record more at a time. To produce an episode, to record an episode, that involves thought. What is the episode going to be about? How are the ideas going to be organized on the episode? There's show notes to the episode. However, to be able to record more each time I'm sitting down here in the studio, that is a huge, huge help. So the episodes will, sometimes a solo episode may be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Moving forward, each episode will be condensed, which means then, my thoughts would definitely need to be organized so that I can deliver a message in a succinct and precise way. And I'm so happy to be back. I'm happy to be sitting again in front of the microphone. I so appreciate my audience. I've missed delivering information in this kind of way. I take it as a responsibility. I take this very, very seriously. Our people are not to be toyed with, not to be played with, and we require a great deal of care and attention. And that's what I want to bring to this episode. I want to continue bringing care and attention to this episode in addressing the needs that I am recognizing in our community. As I said, I will continue to have guests, but when you hear from me and it's a solo episode, it will be a condensed message, a much more condensed message than you're probably going to be you've been used to from prior episodes. However, I am happy to say that the podcast is back. The episode is Let Me Reintroduce Myself. I did that in that little opening clip. It's so good to be able to hear progress. It's good to be able to chart progress. And the podcast has come a long way. I personally have come a long way. And those who have been listening with me over these last 4 to 5 years now, I hope that you too have progressed. And anyone who is new to the podcast, welcome to the journey. We will continue to hold ourselves accountable. We will continue to ring the alarm, sound the alarm, talk about what offends us, whether it's ourselves or others, talk about what we should do, what we can do. We will talk about civic engagement, community safety, public safety, empowering our young people and laying a foundation so that they can move on into the world, equipped with what the world is going to present to them. So I'm very happy to be back. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, questions, you're always free to email me at Nurah@NurahSpeaks.com. Again, that's Nurah@NurahSpeaks.com. The podcast is back. I'm back. I'm very happy. And I'm glad to get this machine rolling again. I hope that you're glad that the podcast is back and that you'll come back and join me in this journey. I am your sister, Nurah Muhammad, and the host of Nurah Speaks podcast. And let's get going. Let's deal with the issues in our community. Let's talk about the issues in our community. And if someone is listening for the first time, I hope that you come to this podcast with an open mind, because this is not a civil rights movement here with the Nurah Speaks podcast. We've seen that the civil rights movement has not yielded results, not the results that we need to make the progress that we deserve. So the message that you're going to get here is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be about accountability. It's going to be about personal and community responsibility and what we must do to meet the needs of our people. If this is your first time listening, I do encourage you to go back and listen to the podcast. You can listen where podcasts are streamed, Apple, Spotify. I understand that Stitcher is no more, but Castbox and iHeart Radio and TuneIn. The podcast can be found where great podcasts are streamed. I look forward to your feedback, and I look forward to continuing my service of you and our community. Come back next week for another episode of the podcast. Until next time, stay in peace.
We were brought here as a piece of property, and to keep that piece of property, it is to not allow the property to know the value of the property. What I mean by that, if you had known the history of yourself, you would not have been made a slave. And you won't be a slave now if you have a knowledge of yourself. It's hard to enslave a person that have equal knowledge with you. You just can't do it. And so this knowledge of yourself is the thing that will free you from what you have been suffering from.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nurah Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, NurahMuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@NurahSpeaks.com. You can also follow the Nurah Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nurah Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.